Welcome to Elite K-9 Unleashed. I'm Chris, a former law enforcement K-9 handler and a professional dog trainer.
And I am Rachel, business strategist and the one behind all things business and marketing here at Idaho Elite K-9 Training and Boarding Suites.
Together, we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to raise, train, and live with dogs at the highest level.
And we'll share the stories, lessons, and laughs on what it takes to build a business, a family, and a life centered around dogs.
Whether you're a dog owner, trainer, or handler, or just somebody who loves dogs, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Elite K-9 Unleashed. Today, we are joined by McKenzie Wadsworth with Elevated K-9 Working Dog Rescue. She is a fantastic dog trainer, a fellow friend, and works so hard on her mission to help working dogs be placed into homes and with jobs that will be well suited for their needs. So thanks so much for joining us today, McKenzie.
Thank you for
grateful
having
you're
me.
here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started with questions?
Sure. I will try and make it short. My name is McKenzie, like she said. I have been doing dogs for 16 years now. I picked up my first dog 16 years ago out of an ad from the Post Register. I called the lady and she's like, actually, we need to euthanize him today because he bit someone yesterday. And I said, I'll take him. And she's like, okay, well, whatever. And so I went and picked up this dog who was probably a Malinois heeler mix. His name is Buddy. And from then on, I was like, I need to learn how to handle this dog. Like, he's a great dog, but I need to learn how to handle him and how to help him be better. I loved him from day one, and together we kind of figured it out.
That's awesome.
So it started there, and then it's just snowballed into what it is now.
That is super awesome.
McKenzie, tell us a little bit about your rescue.
So I focus on working breed dogs, Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds, cattle dogs, anything that needs a direction. Basically, anything that has horrible kennel presence in a shelter setting. So, they're jumping, they're barking, they're bouncing. These dogs are getting overlooked. People aren't wanting to handle them. They're not getting homes. They're going literally kennel crazy because they can't just sit in a kennel. And I've been in this a long time, and I've seen a lot of really nice dogs be euthanized because they fall through the cracks, because of their presence, because of they're not overly social. They don't want to be in the play yard with 10 other dogs. They don't want to go out and play with the kids that the volunteers bring and the soccer balls. They grab the soccer ball and pop it. And, then they get a title as an aggressive dog or a bad dog, and they're not.
Yeah.
More of your working dogs or high energy, or your dogs that are not just going to lay around and hang out.
Right.
So.
You said that oftentimes the shelters don't place the dogs super well. What do you think is most broken in that system?
It's a very broken system. Shelters are doing as much as they can. They're very, very overwhelmed. They've created an application process that is great for the average dog. This includes, do you have a fenced yard? Do you, what other animals are in the house? This and that. And I think you can agree with me on this, Chris. It is possible to live in an apartment and successfully own a Malinois.
Absolutely.
You have to have direction, you have to have structure, you have to have a crate, those things. There's no reason that a Malinois cannot exist in an apartment. So the right person puts in that application, they say they live in an apartment, this and that. The shelter's not going to adopt that dog to them. But the person that comes along that has 3 kids and a fenced backyard that borders an elementary school, they're like, that looks great. That, that dog can run outside and play. Well, next thing you know, the dog is, this has actually happened, biting a kid through the fence and ripping their coat off through the fence. They're bored. So that's the problem that they're seeing, and they are trying to do the best they can.
Yeah. Sometimes just not finding they're trying to find the best homes for them, but sometimes because of what they require, the person living in the apartment might be a great handler, might take the dog, might do sport with it, might do all sorts of stuff. Give the dog the outlet it needs so that it can live in an apartment just fine.
Yes.
Where maybe the family's not going to have the time. They think this dog's just going to run around the backyard and be fine, when all reality, the dog needs much more than that. So.
Exactly. And that's another thing I'm seeing is people's idea of a family dog these days. People are contacting me wanting a family dog, and I ask them, tell me what a day in your family looks like. It's a lot different these days than what it has been in the past. You know, in the past, kids were out playing ball, interacting with each other, and the dog was right there along with them. Now there's video games, there's technology, there's vacations, there's all these things, and the dogs are
Just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it used to be, like, even when we were younger, I mean, we were outside playing. We were outside doing things. We were, in the backyard, we were doing that kind of stuff. And I think you don't necessarily see, not that people still don't go outside and play, but you don't see that near as much. So a lot of times you're getting these dogs that are, instead of being active with the family, are more, just hanging out, right? They want a dog that's just going to lay on a couch and doesn't need a whole lot of energy, or doesn't need a whole lot done with it, doesn't need to be taken places, doesn't go anywhere, it kind of hangs out in the backyard, in the front yard. I definitely think one of our questions when people ask for training is, what's your typical day look like? So we can get an understanding of, is the dog at home in a kennel all day? Is the dog being out, or does the dog go? We get a bunch of people that do take their dog to work. Does the dog go to work? Does the dog do this? So that we can kind of best understand how we're going to help them. I think that definitely has changed over time. So
What used to be short sporting seasons are now year round, especially as they get in high school. And then you couple that with parents working full time and gaming, and the families just being split 15 different directions every evening. There's not a lot of homes that are super conducive to having a pet in general. So anything we can do to help educate and support them in that, I think, is really important.
Absolutely.
So with the dogs that you are pulling from the shelters, though, what are things that you look for in the homes that you're trying to send them to, or the jobs that you're placing them in?
So every dog that comes through my program is treated as an individual for who they are. I have a basic program that I follow step by step, the foundation work and stuff like that. But each dog is different, like each person is different. Mm-hmm. So I try to get to know the dog, understand the dog's needs, and basically I'm a matchmaker. So when people call me and they're like, hey, can you give me an inventory of your dogs? I say, no. Tell me what you're looking for in a dog. Tell me what your goals are. Tell me what you want. What would be the best thing that you could do with your dog? What's your ultimate goal? And then I look at what I have for dogs, and, I can filter through and be like, this dog would be perfect for you. Whereas if they came in and looked at all the dogs, they might be drawn to the cute one over there that they have no business owning, mm-hmm. that it would be horrible for the dog, horrible for the person. Then that way everyone wins. The person gets a dog that matches their goals. The dog has a person that matches it. And the goal is the dogs don't come back. Yeah. When they leave, I always offer 3 free training sessions. I've never had one person come back for a session.
That's insane.
Which they should be.
Yeah. They should be.
And this is after you've put a ton of time and energy into the dogs.
Yes.
We talk about that a lot too, because what we try to tell people is, like, leadership doesn't transfer. The dog can listen perfect to you, and the dog can be a great, amazing dog. And then you hand that dog off, and if they don't have the skills that they need, they're going to have problems, right?
Absolutely.
And I think you with your rescue, like, if they take the dog comes back to you. If they can't just give the dog away. It would come back to you, and then you would try to rehome the dog. Correct.
The only exception to that would be, say I have a dog that would fit your program perfectly, and I'm like, hey, Chris, you need to adopt this dog. Be an awesome narcotics dog, for example. So you make it a narcotics dog, then you can rehome it to a department with a fee or whatever you need to do in that direction, as long as it's bettering the dog's life. But as far as we're moving, we got to get rid of the dog needs to come back to me. Mm-hmm. So,
well, definitely, it would be nice to see, and we've some of our other episodes, we've talked about like it should be required. If you want a dog, it should be required that you have training, right?
Yes.
It would be, shelters would be empty if that was the case.
Absolutely.
If you wanted, I mean, it's no different. If you want to carry a gun, you want a concealed weapon, you want to go fly an airplane, there's requirements that you have to have. Drive a car, right? There's requirements that you have to make that happen. And we talk about that all the time. Like, it should be a requirement if you are going to get a dog that you have some kind of training program that you have to do. Because then there'd be a lot less dogs in shelters and people would understand what they need to do. And then we have a lot less dogs that have all these issues by the time we get them. So
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes,
Totally different dog world. You know, there's a lot of different things that set your program apart with your rescue. Can you kind of walk us through what the process looks like, though, for like the intake to adoption with you and what's different in your approach with that?
Absolutely. So every dog that comes in, I always start with them in a crate or in a enclosed, basically quarantined area. I'm pulling these dogs from shelters all over, and you don't know what else is coming with them. And I start by hand feeding all my dogs. So none of my rescue dogs come in and eat out of a bowl. It's not just free for all meal. I don't go through free feed. I hand feed everything. That tells me a lot about the dog from the very, very beginning. Is the dog in the back of its crate, shaking, not wanting to come to the front? Is the dog trying to push out of the crate, trying to eat my hand, like wants the food, doesn't care about anything else, And you can read a lot about a dog by how they take food. So I start there. And then I start into luring obedience. And they don't even know that they're being worked at this point.
Yep.
So they understand that food comes from me and they're dogs. They're not humans. They process information different. Food is a major resource for them. As soon as they learn that, I start luring dogs. I'll lure them into the down position, in the stand position 1,000 times. Up and down, up and down, up and down. So then when they get adopted and it comes time to name that, all I have to do is lure them into down and say the new owner wants the down to be called asparagus. Okay? Asparagus, yes. Asparagus, yes. Asparagus, yes. Okay? Now the down command for the dog is whatever its new owner wants. There's no confusion. There's no, learning period, takeover time. I do a lot of that. I like to watch people interact with the dogs, and sometimes I will keep the dog for a week and mold the dog to that. Some people want to sit over their dog and say, now sit. I don't do that with my dogs. So if I train a sit, I sit back and I say, sit. And I expect them to sit. So when somebody comes over my dogs and is like, sit, they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you feeding me?
Yeah.
What's coming next, that kind of thing. So basically, they're custom made, every single one of them. But I guess I start with food.
And they're custom made or basically shaped for who is going to come, what home they're going to go to, who's going to be working them.
Right.
Yep. And then outside of that, exercising, I have a great property. I can take them out on the long line. I've got the horses around. I make sure everything has a great recall. That's very important to me. I have no fences. I have many working dogs. I have no fences. I have no problems.
Yeah.
I manage that with a long line, with backup if I need, put out a dog that's reliable, that they get along with, that I know will come back, that kind of thing, when they get to graduating off the long line. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, the food we do, especially with our puppies. But we tell people with training with food, it's nice to have something. It's nice to have a willing participant with training.
Yes.
And how you get that is you hand feed the dogs, right? When you hand feed, they don't know they're they're just having the time of their life.
Exactly.
They're happy. They're willing to do what you want. Really, we're training, but they think they're just getting their meal. And so we tell a lot of people to start there, and that's how we do a lot of our stuff too. And it just makes life a lot easier than
it works.
trying to have a dog that just eats whenever, and now you want to try to work the dog, and the dog's like, Yeah, no, I'm good.
have
I don't
nothing
want to
to
do
work
this.
for.
Exactly.
And I tell people that all the time. Nobody wants to work for a grouchy boss. Nobody wants to work for free.
Yep.
You know, give the dog something to work for.
Absolutely. Something they're excited about and want to have and makes them happy.
Absolutely.
I do think the fact that like you don't name the command for them until later, till you know where they're going and what they want those commands to be, probably makes it a lot easier for the transition for them.
Yes, it really does. And you guys see this all the time too. You know, some people, when they want their dog to down, it's go lie down, or sit down is for sit. And that's very confusing when I put sit and down on a dog and somebody comes and tells my dog to sit down and they mean sit, my dog will sit and then my dog will down. And then they're frustrated. My dog's confused. Like, well, I did what you said,
Right.
you know?
I do feel like people get kind of funny about their commands too. Cause like I'd say the vast majority of clients that come through here, they're like just getting started. So they're happy to make most of the commands, whatever our typical commands are for them. But we do have some that come in and they are like very specific on what they want things called. And so we start from the beginning that way and it does make it a lot easier.
So you mentioned these dogs aren't products. What does treating them like a project mean on a day-to-day level?
Back to the each dog is an individual. What did the dog do yesterday? I try to keep, you know, a very fresh mental file of what was the dog like yesterday? You know, what was the dog's mental state? You know, was the dog super willing? Was the dog shut down? What was it? And I carry that into the next day and I go in and think, okay, why did that happen? Why was that dog overwhelmed? Why was that dog shut down? Why was that dog overstimulated? And then I try to make it better the next day. So every day is a different day, and I just try to keep building that foundation and try to understand what is truly going on in their brains. Because dog psychology is a huge part of dog training. You know, you have to understand what they're feeling, why they're feeling it to make any headway or progress. You know, if you keep doing the same program every single day and it's not working, there's a reason it's not working.
That's why we say train the dog that's in front of you,
Yes.
right? Work the dog that's in front of you. I think a lot of people think that the same exact thing is going to work for every dog, and that's just not how it is. You should have multiple ways of doing things, and really just work the dog that's in front of you. Yeah. Something is going to be different with this dog than the last dog you worked. So we get this a lot with like some of our board and trains and stuff, and we have other trainers here, and when we're trying to work with them, sometimes they get a little confused because they're like, well, the last dog, this worked perfectly fine.
Right.
And you just have to explain to them, well, this dog's different, right? They're individuals, just like we're individuals. Mm-hmm. Different things work for different people. Different things work for different dogs. So really just realizing when you're training a dog, just work the dog that's in front of you. So.
Yeah, McKenzie, talk to us about nutrition for just a minute. I feel like that's something that both pet parents and trainers, the general public, we all kind of miss the mark on sometimes.
Absolutely.
A lot of people miss the mark on, right?
Absolutely.
I know that's something you're really passionate about in the dogs that you're working with. So what made you start paying closer attention to the food that you're feeding these dogs and how it affects their behavior?
That all started back with my original buddy dog. He came with a bag of Alpo something, and I was like, this smells terrible. Like, you know, it's greasy, it's gross. And I started playing around with it, and I was doing some research on the internet, and I started like cooking some chicken and feeding it to him instead, and then adding, you know, complete nutrition. And I'm not a nutritionist, I will say that, not at all. This is a lot of trial and error kind of things. But I saw huge improvements, not only in his physical condition, his coat, but his behavior. So when dogs are getting what they truly need, I see a huge behavioral difference in them. And kibble on the market right now is so depleted and so dehydrated, and dogs just are not made to digest that. Mm-hmm. Their digestive tracts are made much different than us as humans. A lot of people miss that. A lot of people want to feed their dog multiple times a day, and dogs are not designed to eat multiple times a day. If you want to go back to the whole pack evolution, beginning of all of it, dogs work in a pack. And when they're hungry enough, they find their next meal, right? Which could be a deer or an elk or some sort of prey. And they work together and they exert a ton of energy to take down this animal. And then they feast, okay? They feast and then they fast until they're hungry enough to go get another one. So I really follow that natural model of feasting to fasting. And I just keep like a mental note of it. I fast my dogs once a week for 24 hours. I feed a lot of raw bone-in chicken that really, I've seen a huge behavioral difference in my dogs. Just giving them the endorphin release of crunching through the bone, you can physically see them happier. And when they're happier, they're lots easier to work with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What kind of transformations have you seen when dogs are fed high quality nutrition, both physically and behaviorally?
I mean, aside from obviously the things that we can see. So we see a difference in their coat. We see a difference in their muscle tone.
Right.
You see them being faster, having better endurance, being stronger, not having the injuries and things like that. When they have the nutrition to support their joints, when they have nutrition to support all of their tendons and ligaments and everything, they're just better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All the way around.
Yeah, all the way.
Well-rounded and able to work and do what they were meant to be doing.
Absolutely.
Right?
What would you say to someone who thinks food is just food, especially for high drive working dogs?
I would say go eat McDonald's because it's food and you have to eat it for 365 days and then you tell me how you feel.
No, probably not very good. Not good, and you probably are not going to be in the condition to work at all.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I know this is something that you and I, outside of the podcast, have spoke extensively about, but let's talk for a little bit about the reality of rescue work. And I know it's exceptionally time consuming, highly expensive.
Yes.
And a lot more goes into it than what the general public really is aware of. And I think at the heart of this podcast today, I think for me, when we were talking about bringing McKenzie on, this was the piece that I was really hoping she would come on and share with everyone. We've talked about it on this podcast before several times that the point of it is to get good education out there to pet parents and dog owners and the general public, because in a lot of ways, there's a lot of bad and misinformation out there. And I know McKenzie's heart for the mission that she has and how she pours her whole heart and soul and self into what she does. And I wanted her to be able to have a space where she could really share the realities of rescue work in a way that could really, truly educate the public on what it's like on a day-to-day basis running a rescue.
It's expensive and exhausting, but so rewarding when you see a dog that comes in that is completely broken. Go on and live a life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see a ton of that. I think a lot of people realize with like shelter dogs, rescues, all that kind of stuff. A lot of these dogs just have not had a life at all, right? They've been tucked away somewhere. They've lived in a crate. They've been abused. They've just had horrible lives up until they get to come with you, and then they start to really, and that alone is time consuming. Just trying to repair what has already been done is just extremely time consuming. So that kind of stuff takes moving slowly and a lot of time to do that. So, and that's before you even get into trying to train and get them to where they need to go, right?
Truly. And that's kind of the reality of it. It's not, I don't get to just sit and play with dogs all day. I have dogs that want to eat me. I currently have a dog that really wants to eat me, I have to keep myself safe. I have to keep my family safe. This is at my home. I have an 8-year-old daughter. And expensive. It is so, so expensive. And things that people don't necessarily realize, that are costing money. Like my quarantine kennels, a bag of shaving is $12. I'm going through a bag of shavings a day, just in bedding, just to, absorb and keep things sanitary and whatnot. It just, there's so much that goes on besides playing with dogs. And I think that I wish a lot of people would understand how many hours go into it. There's the feeding and the cleaning and the exercising and then the training and then the trying to talk to people and post on social media and respond to people's text messages. And my phone is ringing all day, every day. And people are like, well, why didn't you message me back? And it's like, well, every time someone messages me, I have to stop what I'm doing with a dog and pick up my phone, and that completely disrupts that whole session. And you know that, working with a dog, like I feel like it's a very almost intimate relationship when you are engaged with them and they are engaged with you and things are going great, and then you have to answer the phone.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and it does interrupt what you're doing. Here, like we tell most of our clients that come through, like they'll take notes up front, and at the end of the day is when I will call people back. Some nights we don't. I mean, we didn't get out of here last night till, I don't know, it was late, 10 o'clock.
We still have a stack of notes of people that,
And
as
so
soon
I
as we
didn't
wrap
call
up this
people.
podcast,
Yeah,
we got to go call.
I haven't even called people from yesterday, but that's finally what we've done, because if not, I'd be on the phone all day. So it is take notes at the end of the night. So I tell people, like, I will call you back, but it's probably going to be late. And at the end of the night is when we make our phone call, so that we're not interrupting everything through the day, because it only takes a couple phone calls in your entire day. You've got nothing done.
Right.
You're off track. We have clients that are here that have paid to be in a training session that need us to be there. I can't just go be on a phone call. So
Well, and that's with us having an entire team here to support us, helping respond to emails, helping respond to messenger messages, helping answer both phones that ring constantly all day. So I can't imagine how many hours a week you're working trying to manage everything.
And it's a lot. And even transporting dogs, that is insanely time consuming too. The first dog that came out of California, I actually went through my phone and added up. That day, I spent 6.5 hours on my phone dealing with transport arrangements for that dog. 6.5 hours.
That's insane. That's
Like
a lot of time.
I can't. I need more hours in the day.
Yeah.
And it's something that has to be done. These are time sensitive things. A lot of these dogs in high kill shelters are days past their euthanasia date, which means anytime they need that kennel, that dog goes to the room and gets euthanized. And, so there is a time crunch on that, and it makes you have to hurry. You can't just be like, oh, yeah, I'll get to it next week.
Yeah.
I'll call you back.
It's very time sensitive because it truly is a life or death matter for some of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when you talk about how expensive things are, I think people sometimes don't. I mean, yes, you've got your bedding, food by itself is, especially if you're feeding a good diet and you're doing all that stuff, food is very expensive. Training gear is expensive.
Yes.
And dogs are good at breaking things. So
Very.
you have a very nice leash, or you have a very nice, it doesn't take long before that stuff gets worn out. You have kennels that are crazy expensive. I mean, kennels are not cheap at all. Crates are not cheap. It just doesn't matter. Like anything in the dog world, for the most part, unless there are cheap stuff out there. If you buy that, it won't last at all.
Exactly.
But if you're going to spend money to get something that's going to last, all that stuff costs money, and stuff's expensive. So
And it all adds up. Like
adds up quickly. So
$12 here on bedding over a month is a lot over the course of a year.
It is.
And that's one of the more cheaper items that are needed to
Absolutely.
care for them. McKenzie, I think one of the most special parts about your rescue, at least for us, maybe because we have such a heart for working dogs, is that you are actually able to take them, bring them in from situations like being on a euthanasia list or something like that, bringing them in, giving them the foundations that they need, and giving them a job and a purpose where other people might see that they're not worth anything. You see that all they need is foundation, love, direction, and to be placed where they can do the jobs they were created to do. So I was wondering if you could share a story about one of the more challenging dogs that you've worked with and what their transformation looked like for you, because I'm sure with all the hard that goes into it, that's the rewarding piece at the end of the day for you.
Absolutely. I have a lot, which is a great thing to do. I have one that I'm pretty partial to. He came in as a stray, and he was basically skin and bones and like riddled with parasites and all of the things. Didn't have any human interaction, any human trust, anything like that. I think it took me 10 days to even be able to like be somewhat close to him, just because he was so fearful. It was so overwhelming to him that my presence alone was just like too much for him. So it took a long time, and I just worked really, really slow. And like I said, I hand feed everything. So I just made sure, I had really good food and really yummy food, essentially, and would put my hand all over it and just kind of rub it like on his kennels so that he would have to come over and lick it. It would still have my scent on it because hand feeding him was absolutely not an option, and he needed to eat. But he was completely emaciated. So big meals, you can't do big meals. It's a bunch of small meals. Once he learned that humans were okay, like he bloomed. Like he was just like, this is great. Like the first time I showed him what a ball was, he had no idea what a ball was. He looked at it and like he watched it roll, and he knew that he liked it, but he wasn't sure what he was supposed to do with it. He's like,
what is this?
This is pretty cool, but I don't know,
Yeah.
So then once he started playing ball, like I knew that there was a lot more in there for him. And I was like, you're such a cool dog. Anyways, he just blossomed and grew so fast and just came out of his shell. And just to see him before, he was basically, if he would have gone to the shelter, they would have euthanized him right after his stray hold, just because he was so emaciated, so fearful, so everything.
Yeah.
But very long story short, he ended up with a great home in a family, and I get updates on him all the time, and I love it. I see him on Facebook. The kids do 4-H with him. They do scent work stuff with him.
That's
they do
amazing.
agility with him. And he's just like the happiest thing ever.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That definitely makes it worth it when you
It
see
does.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So, teaching dogs how to learn is a powerful phrase. What does that look like in action?
So I think people miss this a lot in dogs. They get really into almost maybe dictatorship, for lack of a better term. I said sit, you're going to sit, and then they make the dog sit or whatever. I want the dog to willingly offer me a behavior through engagement, okay? And then I'm going to load a marker word so the dog understands when they do something correctly. This changes everything through marker words and luring. You're teaching your dog how to learn. Once your dog can lure, you can literally lure your dog anywhere up on this table, and you want it to lay down, you lure it into a down, and you use your terminal marker, which is yes, meaning you did it perfect. Good job. Okay. So, but there's people who think teaching a dog to learn is drag the dog on the table and, yep, good job, good dog. And the dog's like, I have no idea what just happened.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what I did. Or there's the people who are like, come on, buddy, come on. And they finally get up here, but the dog doesn't have any sense of what it did. It has no idea that it just went from the floor to the table and laid down. It was just like, come on. But when you have those steps, like you can lure your dog and you can mark your dog as far as you did it right. Good job. Mm-hmm. Once you can start marking that, then they can learn anything you want them to learn.
Yeah. But they need to have that feedback to know that what they did mattered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do a lot of, we get a lot of people that come in and say, like I have this issue, I just don't want the dog to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, like where are you at with the dog? Show me if you have obedience. Well, the dog doesn't really do anything. And I'm like, okay, so you want to fix this issue over here, but
Yes.
your dog doesn't do anything. Like, what I usually try to tell people is that there's structure and obedience and that kind of stuff does not solve everything. But what it does do is it teaches the dog, I guess in this case, how to learn, right? The dog takes information in,
Yep.
processes it differently than how it was,
Yep.
and the dog actually starts to learn and understand things. So when we get that structure and obedience, I tell people it's not going to solve everything, but one thing it does do, and they learn along the process, which is the important part too.
Right.
Dogs, once we start kind of talking in their language, they catch on fairly quickly. So it's teaching the owners that. But once the dog starts to be able to take information in and process information, it really changes the worldview of the dog, right?
Yes.
The dog starts to understand things different, which in turn helps fix different things and maybe not fixes everything, but you're in a completely different situation now that the dog understands, like, hey, I have some understanding and pull of what happens in my world, right?
Absolutely.
I get to make decisions. I get to get rewarded for decisions. Once the dog starts doing that, it completely just changes the outlook of the dog. And that's kind of what we try to tell people that come in and say, well, kind of when you're talking about dictatorship or this or that, it's like, well, I just want the dog to lay down. I tell him to lay down, he doesn't lay down. Well, there's a little more to it than that, right? This is a relationship. It's a working relationship, and you have to gain that leadership by working with the dog, and that takes both of you to do that. So,
Absolutely.
Well, I know from talking that we've talked about your two biggest needs being help with things like responding to messages, other people who can help work with the dogs, which that piece in itself is like you need people that are either educated on how to handle those types of dogs, or B, are willing to learn to be educated to handle those types of dogs. But you rely on volunteers for those things. And I know that's been a struggle for you. Mm-hmm. And then the other piece is funding. And so I know we've like touched on this a little bit, but I did want to talk about why funding matters so much to rescues, and even why the volunteer piece is so important as well.
Yeah, for sure. Volunteers are definitely necessary in cases. But back to what I said about the dogs don't want to work for a grouchy boss, and nobody wants to work for free. This is a huge problem with the overall, I guess, view of rescue. People think rescue equals cheap or free. People are donating so much of like their time and their vehicle for transport. And truly, these people need to be compensated. They're using their personal vehicle to drive thousands of miles to transport a dog from point A to point B so that it can live, literally. People who are fostering dogs, I do my fosters a lot different than a lot of people. All the dogs that come through, I would not put a dog in a home that has never been in my home. Like, I know every dog. If they need a foster, there is a specific reason for it. That foster needs to be working on that, and we work together, whether it's virtually or in person once a week. We do weekly updates on progressing the dog. I don't want dogs just sitting stagnant. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of rescues get themselves in this boat where we can't afford to do anything. So what do? Nothing. We can't afford training. We can't afford anything. So I would really love to be able to pay transporters, pay fosters, pay these people for their time, for their knowledge, for their dedication. But without funding, I cannot do that.
Yeah, and it's not sustainable to pay out of pocket, which is why sponsors and donors and fundraising comes into play and is super, super important.
Absolutely. And there's people, I understand not everyone can help and bring these dogs into their home. And I don't necessarily need that. Just even word of mouth, it really helps. I have some really great friendly dogs right now. You're going to go to the new, what's the new brewery called?
Hops and Paws.
Hops and Paws, yeah. Come grab a dog. Like, I have some really nice, friendly dogs that can go play and not, be hanging out in a kennel. And and talk to people while you're there about the dog.
Yeah.
You know, get to know a little bit about my why. Get to know a little bit about my program and that I want to produce well-rounded dogs. And yes, my adoption fees are a lot higher than a lot of rescues, and I want to touch base on that because I have to invest my time and my knowledge and training into myself to make this successful. So a lot of people have a hard time with that when they see adoption fees that are higher than what they think. They think I'm just getting rich off of it, and in reality, that's
not the case.
not at all.
I would guess in most circumstances, you're
You're
barely
still,
even, or maybe not even getting reimbursed for the total cost of what it took to care for that dog and put the training on the dog to get it where it needs to go.
I would say by a long shot, right? By the time the dog gets the training, the vet care, the food, the time that you spend with them, there's no way that you're recouping all of that in the price of the dog. So, I mean, you're doing that to try to help the rescue continue so that you can continue to help dogs and continue to place dogs in homes. So,
And it's impossible to help every dog. I can't help every dog. But the ones that do come in, I want to help them the best that I can. I want them to be the best that they can be and have the best life they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
and like right now, for the most part, you're still doing a lot of this out of pocket, right? This
Very
is
much
just
so.
you funding it and pretty much paying for all of it and just doing it.
Pretty much. You know, and I do have great people who do donate when they can. And I understand not everyone is loaded with money. And, you know, I don't want people to feel like, I'm like, give me all your money. That's
No, but
It's not how it
there's
is.
lots and lots of ways that people could help. Like we were talking about this earlier today, but every single one of us has a circle of influence, right? And so even just sharing a social media post, letting your friends and family know about McKenzie's organization. Maybe you're not in a position that you could help, but you may know someone within your circle of influence who may be willing to volunteer, be a foster, may be willing to donate or be a sponsor to help cover costs for dogs that are in fostered homes. There are lots and lots of ways that you can support the cause that McKenzie is working on. So our ask for everyone that's listening today is really just if you could share and spread the word about McKenzie's mission, what she's doing, and if you feel like you might be able to help in any way, we will definitely make sure we put all your contact information in there. But for everyone watching, obviously not everyone is in a position to donate, but I do feel like it is important to just know that the little ways that we can try to help support your mission help. And if everyone would just be willing to share it and maybe get it in front of other people in your circle of influence that may be willing to help, that's super important and goes a really long way.
I truly appreciate it. It does.
No, and just sharing things. I mean, we all have social media, and you share a post, most of us have hundreds of friends at least on Facebook, whether we're close to them or not. It only takes, a few people to continue to share, and then thousands and thousands of people see it. So
Get it in front of the
if you
people
can't,
who
if you
help.
can't donate, if you can't volunteer, if you can't do that stuff, just sharing is a way that you can help. So
It goes a really long way.
break down the cost for us, like what it costs you for one dog, kind of start to finish, everything that you do, everything that goes into it.
It's a lot. Just transport. So getting the dog to me. So for instance, the California dogs that I got, I had to pay $325 per dog for a transport company to transport them to me. So that's just the beginning of that cost. I had to give the shelter, they're refundable, but deposits on the dogs that were not neutered. So when I do alter them, I can get that money back, but that's still $50 a dog up front. And I haven't even got the dogs yet. Okay. When dogs overnight somewhere, when they're on a transport, that costs money. I have to pay the boarding facility. Then they come in, and then we start with basic nutrition, things like that. A lot of dogs I do try to embark test. That's another, I do get a discount on those, but that's another $125 per dog. And what that tells me is who they are, what breed they are, whether they have genetic diseases that are causing behavioral issues, things like that. When I say I start from the inside out, like I truly do, we go down to the DNA and really learn about the dog. Then it comes into housing the dog. The dog it needs a kennel or a crate that costs money, those kind of things. And then just my time in working the dog and my continuing education. I need to keep taking classes. I need to keep going to workshops. I need to keep going to seminars. But it's hard to be away because then when I'm away, I have to pay someone to feed
For the dogs,
and water and clean and exercise. All of those things. We haven't even started vet care yet. So most dogs need parasitic treatments a lot.
Yeah.
So then there's that, which also costs money. And you're talking about just your regular shots, your parvo, your bordetella, your lepto, and then your rabies. We're already hundreds and hundreds of dollars deep.
Right.
And that's just preventative stuff. I'm sure
Yes.
a lot of these guys come with medical issues
Yes.
that need
Immediate
care.
attention.
The one that I currently got in, the vet hasn't confirmed this yet. I need to take him in when I can handle him. I currently can't handle him, but I believe he was shot in the face with a shotgun. He's got scars all over, and you can almost see like BBs under his skin. His
That's
eye is
horrible.
completely sunk in, so he needs some medical attention, but we have to be able to safely handle
Handle
him first. They're healed over, so that's going to be a surgery.
Yeah. Oh, poor guy. That's sad.
Yeah, that's just on top of just the basic stuff. Every dog, I'm sure, comes, at least most of them, with some kind of issue or something above and beyond, not just regular medical or vet care. Then feeding, I'm sure food is not expensive or not cheap. So
Not at all.
So roughly, do you have like a number? Do you have a rough idea of what it would cost you, just like an average case?
I would say bare minimum each dog, I'm at least $800 in to each dog. Bare minimum. That's without.
Just before you really start anything.
Yeah.
So you're probably thousands of dollars into dogs by the time you're, depending on what they need.
Absolutely.
And your adoption fees really reflect all the work and care that you put in. So what do you say to the people that push back to you on the higher adoption fees? Do you let them know everything that goes into caring for the dog?
I try, but again, people have the perspective of rescue equals free. It's a rescue dog. Why are you charging for it? Well, my time and my knowledge has to be worth something. So say I adopt a dog out for $6,500. People about die when they hear that. Okay. Well, 500 of that I repay the rescue, and the 6,000 pays for the 4 months of training, which is me working for next to nothing, training the dog for say 4 months. But what I tell people is, what this dog is. I know everything about this dog. I can tell you the behavioral issues of this dog. I can tell you physical issues of this dog. I can tell you mental issues of this dog. You can go to the shelter and you can grab a dog for free. And you can invest the $6,500 in training, and you don't know what you're going to get. But this dog has been through all that, and you know exactly where you're starting. So,
Yeah. And that is powerful because you're not going to get that very many places where you go,
Right.
nor the level of training that they're getting before they go where they're going. McKenzie, what do you think fuels the mindset that rescue dogs should be free?
I think that for a long time, shelters and rescues have been really overwhelmed, and it's been very much a crank dogs through. We need empty kennels for these dogs coming in, and we're creating this huge problem, essentially. And what needs to be focused on is the dog more so as an individual, rather than a dog just sitting in a kennel, for instance. In my program, my dogs get worked. I know my dogs, they get exposure. They get exposure to livestock. They get outside every day. They get to run, they get to play. I take them on side-by-side runs, things like that. I'm putting all of my heart into this, whereas shelters and rescues are trying to turn over so many dogs. they're literally doing free adoption days and free this and free that. And they're trying their best, to keep as many dogs flowing as they can. But it's really hurting. The whole mindset of it is wrong, because what I'm doing is much different.
Absolutely.
I'm spending the time with these dogs, and I'm developing them into individuals where they can go on and be successful. I'm trying, and you can't fill every single hole in every single dog, but the problems, you can manage them. And with other shelters and rescues, focusing more on numbers and, the numbers at the end of the year of, look how many dogs we adopted out. Well, how many of those dogs came back? Where did those dogs end up? What happened to those dogs? Those are numbers like, how many of those numbers was the same dog coming back 3 times?
Yeah.
I've picked up several dogs from the shelter who have been back in for their 4th time.
Yeah, I was going to bring that point up when you said that, is moving a dog out of the system for the dog to return does nobody any good.
Exactly.
Right? We get clients that come in and like, hey, we have this dog. It's been back to the shelter 4 times in the last 2 months or whatever, right? And I think that's where what you're doing is different. You're taking the dog in, you're spending time, energy, money, all to train the dog and develop the dog so that when you adopt the dog out, and you're selecting somebody for that. We're not just, oh yeah, you guys want a dog? Like, come back here and grab one. It is, you are hand-picking somebody for that dog, and the success rate for that, well, like you already said it, you haven't had a dog returned, right? That's how we start to solve the issue of dogs going and finding a good home compared to just rotating dogs that just end up back in shelters.
Right.
Because they're placed where they have no business being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a very broken system, and I would like to try to fix it and educate people that time is not free, training is not free. These dogs are getting months, essentially, of training and handling, and even the handling goes a long way, too. Volunteers do great at shelters, but they're not educated on how to handle dogs, So you have dogs running out of kennel doors because volunteers don't know how to stop that. You have dogs fence fighting on their way out of the kennels because volunteers don't know how to stop that. There's a lack of education, and education costs money. Everything costs money.
Yes. Yep. And in today's world, getting more expensive by the day.
Yeah. And I think that just touches on, why aren't your rescue dogs free? It's because you do what most places would charge thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for. It's like a board and train, essentially. You're not just cycling dogs. You're putting the time, effort into them. That's why they're not free. They are essentially done a board and train program and are hand-picked for somebody. And you also offer training and all sorts of other stuff that goes with that. So
it does. I think it takes a really big heart to do what you do.
And you got to be tough because
yeah,
some of the dogs are not nice.
No.
Some are not nice. You are very correct.
So you've said that you're offering a finished product, and we just definitely touched on that quite a bit. One that's sustainable and trained to be able to do the job that they're placed to do. How important do you feel like that training piece is? Because I'm sure people maybe have said to you, like, well, can I just adopt a dog that doesn't have the training? So how important is that to you that they have that when you're setting them up for long-term success and placement?
It's the whole reason I do it. It's 100% important. Dogs don't leave without going through that bit of training. Like, it doesn't happen. Even the puppies, I had a female come in, she went into a shelter heavily pregnant. I took her, she whelped her puppies at my house. Those puppies were lured and hand fed every day that they could be, and every single day, maybe not, I do have other things to do. And when there's 9 puppies, that's a long time.
A lot of puppies.
But, they're started on crate training. They're started on potty training before they even leave my care. That goes a long ways, and people, I guess, maybe don't understand, and this is back to the handling thing, just handling them and housing them correctly, how far that goes. But that takes knowledge.
Yeah. And it seems so small, but those foundational basics build up on everything else you're going to teach that dog.
Yes.
Those are what set the dog up for really essentially its life, its issues. It's no different than parenting, right? We do all this stuff when our kids are young so that they're successful in life.
Yes.
Things work much better for them. They understand things. It's no different for dogs. So doing that foundational stuff is really, really, really important.
I think we've touched on a lot of really important things that you do today. And there's not a lot of people who would do what you do. And you have like the heart to do it, the toughness to do it, and it makes the world a better place. Like I know some days it feels like you're maybe not making as big of a difference as you want to be making, but like we see you and we see what you're doing, and you have like a heart of gold to do what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
What do you want people to walk away with learning after hearing about your story and learning about your rescue today?
I hope that people will hear that I'm trying to do things differently. I am trying to make a difference in the dog world. I'm trying to make a difference for every one of these dogs that come through. And there's more to the dogs than what they appear behind the kennel door.
How can people support what you're doing, whether that's through donations, volunteering, or just spreading the word?
Obviously, donations are great. Volunteering is huge, and spreading the word, I think, is the biggest thing. And educating your friends. Like, even if you don't know what all this training talk means and what luring means or what anything means, like, educate yourself and spread the word. Like, hey, even if it's like, hey, this lady, like, spends a lot of time with these dogs before they go somewhere, like, that is a huge difference and would make a big difference. And that's why I feel like I'm a lot different than other rescues or shelters per se.
What legacy do you want this rescue to leave behind?
Change for the dogs. I would love if other rescues would follow suit in this, treating dogs as individuals, not just numbers, educating their volunteers, educating people, people being compensated for their time and knowledge. Like I said, fosters. I would just really like to change the whole rescue world and the way everyone sees it. Just because a dog is labeled a rescue doesn't mean it's free or garbage.
Right.
It was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or in the wrong hands. Or all of the above.
Yeah.
With no one looking at the dog to see.
Say most of it the wrong hands, probably.
Yes.
But all of those, so. If someone listening wanted to support you, what's the best way they could get involved?
At this time, again, sharing and donations. Like I said earlier, I have friendly dogs right now that would love to go on day dates. They're good. They love balls. They love kids, you know. Cats, no, everyone asks that. Everyone wants the dogs to be around their cats. And can we please understand that not every dog can be around cats?
Yeah.
And for some of them, it is really hard to rein in that drive, even when they are able to do it. It takes a lot of work.
It is. It is.
Do you have like social media? Like we'll probably put this all on the video.
Yeah.
You have Facebook.
That's all I can keep up with right now. I would love to have an Instagram and all those things, but I would need people to help.
And then do you have like a Venmo and stuff, or what are you using for donations?
I do have a Venmo and a PayPal.
And we will link those in the description for the podcast as well. Do you have an email address that people can reach out to contact you, or would you? Okay, do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. So it's just elevated K-9 Idaho, the letter K and the number 9 at gmail.com.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll make sure to put all of this in
the podcast description. So if anyone out there wants to reach out and get involved, volunteering, donations, we'll have all the contact information for you there, so you can reach out to McKenzie and get involved helping with Elevated K-9 Working Dog Rescue.
Thanks, McKenzie, for coming on and being a guest. We appreciate you coming and talking with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It truly means a lot.
Yeah, we really do appreciate you coming and hope this spreads the word about your rescue. So thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of Elite K-9 Unleashed, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Elite K-9 Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and share with a follow dog lover, trainer, or handler.
We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at any time at support@idahoeliteK9.com.
And if you're ready to take your dog training or boarding to the next level, you can find us at www idahoeliteK9.com and www.idahoeliteK9boardingsuites.com as well.
Until next time, stay consistent and keep training.